Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside the one, the only Mike Irwin. It's nice to have you back this week, Mike.
Did you have fun last week?
We did have some fun. Alyssa and I had some great questions, so thank you guys for all of your questions to us. Yeah, we had some fun, but I missed you. I really did.
I didn't watch. I was on vacation.
Oh, well, and you should have been on vacation. I would have been mad at you if you watched,
Right.
But it's good to have you back, and I know the viewers are very excited to have you back. We have some questions for you this week, Mike, so let's jump on right into those. Our first question is from Razorback Hobbs, who says, sometimes an offense needs to feel pressure to come out of their shell and reach their potential. I'm not saying that those three pitchers struggling is a good thing, but what I am saying is that in the long run, it will be better for us when it matters in a couple of weeks.
I mean, that's not a bad observation. College baseball is so unpredictable. Who knows? I mean, I will say that Dave Van Horn has been saying for 3 or 4 weeks now he thinks the offense will come around. And I think they really started coming around in the Texas Tech series. You remember they were down, how far? They were down
like 7-0, I think.
I think 7-0 going into the bottom of the fourth. Arkansas ended up winning that game 9-8. So that was the first of the big comebacks. Then in both of the wins this weekend, they had to come from behind, and including on Sunday when they were down 6-0. So when you look, I think one of the things that was going on there is Dave Van Horn kept shifting that lineup around, messing with his outfielders a lot. I think he's finally figured out that he wants Jason Jones in left field. He may strike out a lot, but he's also a power hitter and a guy that can get big RBIs. White, all my Texas Tech fans were asking me all during the season, he hit home runs for us. Why isn't he hitting home runs? Well, he's hitting home runs now, and he's also getting big doubles and driving. He was the MVP of that series, of the Mississippi State series. You also have to think that when you start talking about the pitchers, yes, the day 2 and day 3 starters, Tigert and Molina, that's 2 straight weeks they've struggled a little bit. And honestly, Hagen Smith probably had his worst outing as a start. Wasn't terrible, but he didn't look very good either. One of the things you have to look at is Mississippi State. They came in winning 8 of their last 10 games, red hot, and guess what? Their best hitter and their best pitcher are due back this next week. That's a team you don't want to play in the regionals or super regionals. They may end up winning a national championship. I was really impressed with them. They can really hit. But when you start talking about Arkansas's pitching and all that, you don't come from behind like that if your relief pitchers aren't doing their job. When you score, how many unanswered runs did they score?
Oh, gosh, it was a ton. Yeah, it was like 9. I wouldn't want to say 9.
9 unanswered runs.
Yeah.
You don't do that unless your bullpen is holding them down. So the bullpen looked pretty good. I think in the Friday game there were some bullpen issues that didn't develop the next 2 days. So I don't think the pitching is terrible. It's going to be interesting to see if Gage Wood now actually becomes a starter, because Dave Van Horn threatened that last week and then didn't do it. Well, let's see if it happens this week.
We'll see if something changes. We still have more baseball questions to get to. The next one is from Armand Abbey, who says Van Horn called Sunday's win over Mississippi State the biggest of the season. It was big, but why was it the biggest?
Well, I think some of it was the way that they came back offensively, which he's been wanting. But I think he was also referring to the fact that they lost the Kentucky series. If they had lost this series and lose the A&M series coming up this weekend, that's 3 straight series that you lose. I think they would have dropped below an 8 national seed, which means you don't host a super, even if you win your regional. So I think he realized that's going to cement us as a top 8 national seed. We're not going to, if we win our regional, we're not going to have to go on the road to play a super. I think that's why he said it was big.
Yeah, and there was something I saw on social media that I wanted to bring up to you, Mike, as well, is that Stu Hogg, who I love, and by the way, shout out to him because he put out a great video diving deep into Arkansas's offensive stats and comparing them to College World Series.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that? I mean, it was a great
Basically
video.
said you don't miss the stats. It doesn't matter. Pitching staff stats, hitting stats, they don't necessarily matter when you get into Omaha.
In Omaha. And so it was a very interesting video. Again, go shout out to him, and I can link it for anybody who wants to watch it. But he put out something this past weekend. Arkansas has now lost 3 of its last 4 games. This was before Sunday's game. Some perspective, each of the last 3 national champions also had a stretch in the month of May in which they lost 3 out of 4 games. So last 3. However, none of them lost 4 of 5. So I think that is why, as well, that there was some ante on that Sunday game.
Absolutely.
So I think that's maybe another reason why Van Horn said it was one of the biggest ones of the seasons. S. Giles asked, 1 weekend left in the regular season, who wins the SEC and who wins the West, Mike?
Well, Kentucky's in the driver's seat because they got a 1-game lead and they're playing Vandy at home. Tennessee is playing South Carolina at home. So both of those are in pretty good shape. You have to look at the different scenarios for Kentucky. Okay, they get swept. If they get swept, then either Arkansas or Tennessee could move and win ahead of them. Not likely that they're going to get swept at home against Vanderbilt. Okay, let's say they win 2 of 3. Or no, let's just say they lose 2 and win 1. Again, if Arkansas were to sweep A&M or if Tennessee were to sweep South Carolina, then yeah, they could jump ahead of them. But what seems likely to me, best case scenario, Tennessee might get hot and Tennessee might sweep South Carolina. Kentucky might just win the series at home against Vandy, and then there would be a tie scenario. I just think Arkansas, they can win the series. Maybe I don't see them sweeping. So if I had to take a best guess right now, I'm going to say Kentucky still wins it. With Tennessee finishing second, Arkansas probably finished third, maybe. But all they have to do is win the Friday night game, and they've won the West, or any of those games, really. But Friday night seems to be their best path to winning the West. The interesting thing about A&M is, against Ole Miss, they had 2 low-scoring games and got beat because they weren't scoring runs. Then you go back 2 weeks ago, they lost 2 low-scoring games to LSU because they weren't scoring runs. And then if you go back 3 weeks ago, the 1 game they lost to Georgia was because they didn't score runs. A&M was really hot at the plate for a long time. Their bats are cooling off, sort of like the way Arkansas's pitching has cooled off. So if their bats cool off against Arkansas, the Hogs might win that series. It's just going to it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Axel wants to know, what's the problem with the warning track at Baum? Seems as if every time a player falls or dives for a ball, they come up bleeding. What is the track made of, and is it like other stadiums? Why don't they use a dirt/sand mix?
Okay, well, first of all, let's explain the purpose of a warning track. You've got to do something that allows an outfielder to be able to tell with their feet that they've gone into the warning track, which is a warning, you're close to the fence. If an outfielder is generally looking up, trying to go to the fence after a ball and trying to prevent it from being a home run, he doesn't have time to look down and see what's below him or look and see how close he is to the wall. So outfielders, they do a lot of stuff in practice where they're trained. You got 3 steps. So when you first feel yourself on that warning track, you got maybe 2 more steps. So it just can't be dirt or something that's not enough different from where you're at. So different products are used. The product that Arkansas uses is called Dura Edge. I called over and found out.
Okay.
It is basically crushed brick, very finely crushed brick. But the reason they like it is because it crunches beneath your feet and definitely tells you that's where it's at. But if you fall on it, you could have an issue. Now, it's not like big chunks of brick, which could really cut you open. And what you're basically going to do with that finely crushed brick is it's just going to scrape the skin or whatever, depending on how far you slide, how hard you slide, how far you go down. There's another product called Dura Trax. That is some crushed brick, but they throw in crushed volcanic rock. I know from my uncle, who's deceased now, but he was in World War II, and he told me about how the Japanese defending those islands used to dig down into the volcanic rock of those islands because it was soft rock. It's very easy to dig into there. So that is a product maybe you could use that if you fell on it, it wouldn't scrape you up as much. But here's the bottom line, and we haven't had a chance to talk to him, but you know that Dave Van Horn's the one that decided that. He didn't go ask the athletic department, hey, what do you think we should use? He's a baseball guy. And I promise you, he's checked around and asked what is the best product for an outfielder, and he's looked at all of them, and he's determined that Dura Edge is the best product. So I'm assuming he's not going to change that. But if he did, maybe he could go to the Dura Trax, which is a little bit softer material.
Do you know which schools use versus, do you know if it's more Dura Edge versus Dura Trax?
No, they're just Dura Edge is what Arkansas uses.
Right.
Dura Trax on the internet shows that it's one that's used by major league teams and others. And then look, you go in there and look, there are teams that are starting to now use a rubber product.
I've seen that, yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that, you know what that rubber is? It's like the same weird artificial surface that some do in the infield. It's still probably not going to be enough different that you necessarily, when you're going for a fly ball, you would feel with your feet, okay, now I'm on the warning track. That's what they're worried about. They don't want to put a product down there where you've got their outfielders smashing into the wall because they don't know they're there yet.
Yeah, I think that would hurt a little bit more than having a scraped arm like
exactly.
Peyton Holt. I mean,
you can knock a shoulder out of place. You can do some major damage running into that wall. So, yes, they could scrape themselves up a little bit rather than having some sort of major injury that takes them out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was bothering Peyton Holt that much. I saw him just kept wiping his arm on his...
He had to stay out there for a while after it happened.
He kept wiping it on his pants. All of his pants were quite bloodied up because he kept wiping his arm off. It bled quite a bit, it looked like.
Right.
So, WV Hog fan asks, how much emphasis will Dave Van Horn place on winning the SEC Conference Tournament?
I don't think a lot, if what we say is correct, and they know going into the tournament that I think that it's very likely they're going to be a 3 seed. I mean, they could be a 1 seed or a 2 or a 4, but if you're somewhere in that range, I don't think he's going to be real worried about what they do in the conference tournament. But it is interesting because even if, let's say you're a 3 seed or a 4 seed or whatever, you still got to play on Wednesday, right? It starts for you on a Wednesday. The ones that are at the bottom start on a Tuesday. Okay, what do you do there if you're playing a Tuesday game? You could start Hagen Smith, let him pitch 2 innings or 3 innings, just 30 pitches or 40 or whatever, and then he's still going to have 2 extra days rest to the next week before he pitches on a Friday.
Right.
So you might pitch him a few innings just to make sure he doesn't pitch at all, which you could get rusty, I guess. So he's getting a little bit of action, but he's not going a long distance. Or you could save him and pitch him on Friday if you make it to Friday and pitch him in that game, and then he's part of the normal rotation. And maybe he's back into his rotation, but maybe you don't pitch him very much, like 40 or 50 pitches or whatever. You could also put Tigert and Molina out there on Wednesday and Thursday just to see if they're getting better. And if they start having problems, you take them out. Or you could put Gage Wood out there on Wednesday or Thursday and see how he does on either one of those games. I think if they make it to Saturday, he's not going to care. I mean, you've done enough there. I just don't see him saving anybody for that. He'll go with, if they keep winning, you go with your bullpen guys and you rotate them. Pitch them 2 innings, 3 innings, and go to somebody else.
I mean, and we've talked about this on the show before, Mike, but I just feel like with the conference tournament, I wish they would just get rid of it because
it's terrible.
It's terrible because I feel like you shouldn't have to have this conversation as a coach. I think you should just go in there, you're not trying to get guys injured. I mean, what matters more? Regionals and super regionals and get the College World Series, get to Omaha.
It only
not
matters.
the conference tournament.
It only matters to teams that are just barely got in, and maybe you're trying to improve your seeding when you get into the NCAA tournament, teams like that. Or somebody that maybe is not even in.
Yeah, maybe like a Florida who's on the verge of trying to make something happen.
You've got enough time with you playing baseball in 30 conference games. You got enough time to figure out who you are. If you haven't done it by then, I don't have any sympathy for you. So I don't like it. I don't know why they do it. I don't think it generates that much money. Maybe it's a deal about having baseball that week. But the Big 12. They give each one of their teams a week off where they don't play.
Right.
So that it comes out even at the end. Well, Arkansas could do that too. They could just say, we're not gonna do this. That's the whole point. You could not play a conference tournament and just extend your regular season by doing it that way.
Yeah.
So there's a number of ways to do that, but I don't see any point to it. But it's still there.
Parallax Pig has a technical question about SEC Plus. Coming back from commercial, the majority of the time picture is extremely blurry. What is causing that?
Okay, it's your internet service that you
Yes.
got, and it's the speed of your internet service.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. If you've got a good internet service and you got a high enough speed, it's going to do that less. But there's no way to totally prevent it, because what are we talking about with streaming? You're talking about that video goes through all kinds of processes to get to your house. I mean, it starts out with the original that goes to the place where it's then put on into the internet. And how does it get there? Is it just strictly optical cable, or does it come over landlines and all kinds of things like that? I know that even, and this is funny, but I'm driving in game 2 of this past weekend, the Mississippi State Series. I'm driving from approximately Wichita Falls up to Oklahoma City and got right to the state line listening to that game. And I couldn't get my app to work on my phone for the baseball audio. So the only thing I could get was the ESPN3 app. So I'm driving along listening to that game. And yes, it would periodically cut out. I'd have to tap it back up. I'd kind of pull over. I wasn't driving around town.
No, yeah, hopefully
I'd pull
not.
over and start it again. But it was weird to listen. Guys that are doing TV audio don't have the same issues. They're not describing every single thing that happens because they know you can see it. Well, I couldn't see it. It's on the seat, the passenger seat, and it's sitting there, and it's going through the speakers in my radio, because that's how my wife has the phone hooked up. And I mean, half the time they don't know what was going on. They don't do pitch by pitch when they're just describing the TV thing.
Right.
So it's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have the word you guys are looking for in Parallax Pig is lagging. And the video is lagging is what it's trying to catch up.
Trying to catch up.
For you. So the video is lagging. So, and it happens quite frequently. I have really
It happens
good.
anyway.
I have really good internet, and it happens
still
to me
happen.
sometimes. So again, it's a very common thing with any internet video. I mean, some people comment on our Ask Mike videos. They're like, "Why is the video lagging? Why is the video?" We can't do anything for that.
Sure.
That's you guys.
It's internet streaming. It's just a thing that goes with that.
Exactly. Hog Redneck wants to know, what's your assessment of the Fayetteville softball regional? Can Arkansas advance to a super? Good question.
Okay. It's really an unusual regional in that you've already played 2 of the teams involved. So the first game they play, which is the night game on day 1, is with SEMO, Southeast Missouri. Well, they've already played them in something called the Woo Pig Classic or something. It was a tournament at home, and they won the first game pretty convincingly, 5-0, and I think the next one had to go to extra innings, 6-5. So they've beaten these guys twice. But the second one was close enough that maybe that's an issue. I don't know. But that's the first team you play. Then I'm assuming that Arizona is the 2 seed. I didn't see anywhere where they listed the seedings, but I'm assuming they're the 2 seed. They played them twice, but that was essentially an Arizona tournament. I can't remember what they call it, Fiesta something.
Yeah, the Bear Down Fiesta.
Bear
that
Down
was what
Fiesta,
they called it.
and they played them there. They lost the first game to them 3-2, and then they turned around and beat them the second game 3-2. So the way you can look at that is they split when they were at Arizona. So now you're coming to Fayetteville. Will the home field advantage be the difference in that game? But the other thing you have to look at is what's happening to them right now, because we talked earlier about last year. They were playing the last place team in the SEC, and all they had to do was win a series, and they're putting themselves in pretty good shape. They lost it.
Yeah.
Then they go to the conference tournament and go 1-out.
Yep.
Well, they've done that again.
They've done that again, yeah.
Remember, what did Courtney Deifel say? She laid an egg.
Yes.
Didn't she say that?
Yep, she said that we laid an egg last year. They
Well,
lost to Missouri,
so far
lost
they've
to Alabama.
laid another egg. So what has to be different this time is they don't lose their own regional. So let's hope it changes this weekend.
Yeah, it made me kind of nervous to see the same kind of pattern from last year to this year.
The difference has been their pitching. Their pitching has carried them all year long, and it's
about to say that.
Not what it was.
It isn't, but I was talking to Morgan Linestock, one of their pitchers, before we filmed this, and I said, does it give you any comfort knowing that you've played two of the teams in your regional? And she said, no, we're different teams at this point. You know, we've played both of them. We're different teams at this point. So it doesn't give us any comfort. Now, we're aware of them. We've scouted them before, but it's completely different situations now. And so she felt pretty confident. She said to me that they feel really confident heading into this regional, but there's a little bit of some nerves there. I think I can tell that there's a little bit of
They don't want to be
concern.
last year.
They
Not
don't
at
want to
this
be
point.
last year. They definitely don't want to be last year. To basketball now, where Hot Dogger says Cal did an interview in which he said he might keep his roster to 8 or 9 players. It makes sense to me because it would hold the NIL dollars down to focus on the most quality players. But my fear is what happens when 1 or even 2 players go out on injury. You know, fun fact for you, Hot Dogger, if you listen to that interview, that was the same thing the podcast host said. They said, what happens if you go down with injury? So,
yeah, first of all, that story is interesting because the injury thing is real, but on the other hand, how do you lose 3 players in a season? I guess it could happen. I mean,
it definitely can happen.
That's what would have to happen. I think he still may go with 10, and you mentioned it before we went on. You can recruit a foreign player and not have to pay them NIL because they can't take NIL money as part of their visa.
Yeah.
It's stated in there that they cannot collect NIL money.
Well, it's not stated that they can't collect NIL. They just can't make money being on a student visa. They can't go and get certain jobs,
that's
right?
How you would get NIL
Exactly.
money. So he might look at that. Here's what he explained why he feels that way. He said that he normally plays that many guys anyway, anywhere from 7 to 9 players.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a typical rotation.
Typical rotation for him. He said, so let's say I bring in 10, 11, 12, 13. Those guys know where they are. And here's what happens a lot of times now, because this new NIL thing and the transfer portal, everybody's learning to deal with it. And what he's saying is, you have somebody that's 10, 11, 12, 13, they know where they are based on their NIL money. So let's say you develop them some, they get to the end of the season, they're going to take off because they want more NIL money somewhere else. So you're going to work with them, use them, try to develop them for somebody else. And he said, I don't really see any point in that, developing players for somebody else. So that was his reluctance. Now, as far as practice, because you do have to have enough guys because you're scrimmaging in practice, he said he was going to bring in some grad assistant types that are younger enough and obviously good enough basketball players that they can jump in and be part of that too. So that's the way he solves that problem. So we'll still have to see how this works out. I think he's at 7 right now. Is that right? 7?
Yes. Yeah, I'm counting in my head.
7.
Yes, 7. Thank you.
So if he brings in 2 more, and that might happen this week, we've got one that it's like every time we do this show, right after we finish it, somebody that was in for a visit commits.
Yeah.
And so we didn't talk about it on the show, but it happens right after the show is over. So maybe that happens. So it could be 8 before before the day is over. And then they're talking about a 9th guy that they might bring in, and then you've mentioned the possibility of an even foreign player that could get you to 10.
Yeah.
And then maybe 11, 12, 13 is what you don't recruit. And then even then, that doesn't mean you don't bring in walk-ons.
And that's the point, right? Is that those other spots you can bring in walk-ons for that and fill out that roster. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. He said in that podcast, if I bring on a 10th man, he's going to know he is the 10th man. He's going to know that role and he's going to assume that role. But I don't think it's that crazy. Everyone freaked out on him. 8 or 9 players. What is he talking about? That's crazy. I don't think it's that crazy.
Musselman did that all the time. He had more guys on the roster, but he didn't play them.
No, No, and
He did this past year, but most of the time he didn't.
And you say developing those guys and having them go other place for NIL, they may just go. They may not have a super big NIL evaluation, but they may just leave because they didn't get playing time. They may just leave to go get another opportunity. And so I completely understand what Cal was saying there, and I don't think people don't need to hit the panic button. That is not a scary thing for him to come out and say. D.L. Slayton asked, did you see the online story where Calipari said his office looks more like a dentist's office? Sounded like he wasn't happy. Also, he complained that the condo he was staying in was too noisy.
Okay, there were 3 versions of this story that I saw. The first was done by a legitimate national media outlet, and it was a good story. Then another online service, On3 or so, what is that thing?
Yeah, On3, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, they took it and it was like their interpretation of that, of something that somebody else did. And then there was a Kentucky website, and they took it and totally ran off with it and turned it into a bunch of stuff.
Of course they
did.
did.
And then basically, the Kentucky fans are doing 2 things right now. They're either warning Arkansas fans, you're going to be sorry because it doesn't matter how well he recruits. When it gets to the end of the year, you're going to be disappointed. So they want Razorback fans to seriously believe that they care about them, and they're just trying to warn them, like, don't step out in the street, a car will run over you. They don't care. They're just mad. And so they're saying that. There's another part of the Kentucky fan base that's doing something else. They're saying Arkansas is rinky-dink compared to Kentucky. They don't have good facilities. Cal will get there and realize how rinky-dink it is, and he won't stay because he's used to the class that we have. So this story played right into that. So let's look at the comment. It's like a dentist's office. He was explaining that he hadn't had time to do much. He's been very busy, hits the ground running.
He hasn't hardly been here.
That's right. We talked about how he didn't even have, he had one shirt that he was wearing.
He has one
red.
Razorback polo or whatever it is.
So he was talking about how busy he is, and he just made the comment, my office looks like a dentist's office. Well, think about it. That office got cleaned out by Musselman. So what is it? It's 4 walls, a desk, a couch, and that's about it. Now, two of the walls are glass, and it's really got a cool view. But until he goes in there and personalizes it, that's what a dentist office, that's what he's talking about. There's no personal touch to it. So when I get time, I will do that. But right now, it's just sitting there. And I think he just said that to point out he hasn't had time to do anything but recruit right now.
Yeah, he hasn't hardly been here, Mike. He's been all over the place.
So then the other comment about his condo where he's staying, and he was talking about it being on Dixon Street, and it's okay most nights, but on Friday night and Saturday night it's too noisy, and it's keeping him awake, and I guess his son's in there with him because he's going to be on the staff, and so they couldn't sleep or something. I took that as a joke too. I haven't asked, but I'm pretty sure that's John Tyson's condo on Dixon Street. Anybody that's been up and down Dixon Street, there's an older building, not sure what it used to be. At one time, I remember that it might have been a restaurant on the corner, something like that. But they went up and built 2 floors above it and turned it into a really cool, I've been told that's a really cool condo and a place where John Tyson not only stays sometimes, but when friends come to town, he puts them up there, they enjoy it, they can go out the door and got anywhere they want to go to eat, entertainment, all that stuff. Here's the bottom line on that. If Calipari was really upset about it, you think he would stay there? You think he would go to them and say, hey, I don't like this condo I'm in, it's too noisy. Too bad, stay there, that's what you got. There's no way that would happen. If he didn't like it and he didn't like the noise, they'd put him somewhere else. They got boosters all over the place. The Lindsays are a major contributor. They've got houses all over the place that are empty right now because somebody's trying to sell them, and you just move them into a place like that until the house sells. So he was just joking around about that. So if you're a Kentucky fan and that makes you feel like that, oh, in Arkansas, they just stuck Calipari in a noisy place and he's mad and his office is like a dentist's office and he doesn't, if that makes you feel good and makes you think he's unhappy, go ahead, but I didn't read that into it.
Well, and it kind of sounds like tabloids, right? They take one quote out of context and then they run with it. They're like,
well, that's
this
what
is,
happened. You had
yeah.
one version, then the next version, and the next version.
And it's just at this point, they also comment on every single post going, Calipari looks so unhappy. He looks
he's
so
not
unhappy.
smiling like
He's
he was
not,
at the baseball game and looks thrilled, doesn't he? Well, he's watching a game.
Yeah,
If you look at everybody in that picture, every one of them are kind of going like that because you're wanting to see what happens next.
Yeah, and what if they caught him in a moment where something bad happened for Arkansas,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be smiling, right? He's not that stupid. Come on, I mean that's people drive
It'll
me
be
up a
interesting
wall.
when this is all over and they actually start working out and we have some real stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I really want to stop the questions about, oh, he only has one quarter zip. He's unhappy. He's, too noisy apartment on Dixon. Let the man work. Let the man do his job. We're good,
We'll
right?
see how it falls out next fall and winter when it really matters.
There you go. And our final question. I'm glad Marty Bird's proxy asked this because this was a big topic of conversation last week, Mike. Marty Bird's proxy asked, what's the rundown on this Monte Harrison guy that the football team picked up as a walk-on?
Well, I don't know how much you got into this, but I called Otis.
We didn't talk about it on Ask Mike last week. It happened after that. So
All right. Well, Otis is our football recruiting guru, so I called Otis. Otis says, because some people that I talked to went, whoa, oh, yeah, he looks really good. That's interesting, but they're not giving him a scholarship. Missouri, Drinkowitz will go and get him and steal him, and then they'll go there because they'll give him NIL money and a scholarship. So Otis said, first of all, when this kid came out of high school, he had leverage because he was a 4-star and everybody wanted him. Mm-hmm. So he got it written into his Major League Baseball contract that when his Major League career was over, his college is paid for. And that's not uncommon. A lot of guys that are professional athletes have it written into whatever the contract they have that their college will be paid for so they can go back and finish their school. Now, Otis thinks, and he hasn't talked to this guy about it, but he thinks he might have an eye on playing in the NFL if he comes back and converts to football. Now, he hasn't played football in 6 or 7 years, but he was a really good athlete. And if you've seen his video, I mean, there's a video of him going from first to home on a double, and he's just lightning fast. There's a video of him stealing home plate, just like a flash.
he's very quick.
There's a video of him going to the outfield and going up on an 8-foot wall and virtually climbing this thing and getting his hand over the top and catching a ball. I mean, he's a great athlete. He can jump, he can run, he's tall. So there's that. Then there's also the fact that he's 28 years old.
Yeah.
He adds maturity. Automatically, if you're in a locker room with a bunch of 22, 21-year-old, 20-year-old kids, they're going to listen to a guy that's 28. Now, other people have said, oh, he's too old. You must not know anything about athletes. You hit your peak around 28, physically.
Yeah, there's been other stories of athletes going back to college at an old.
I mean, if you were too old, then the NFL wouldn't want you when you got out of college. They would just go, I'm sorry, you're too old. You're past your college age. We don't need you anymore. Come on. All that's stupid. So what we're left with is just this intriguing possibility. And here's what I'm thinking. What if he's not trying to make it in the NFL? What if he legitimately is going back trying to get his degree so he'll have a career when this is all over, and he stays for 4 years and he's 32 years old and a senior, and think of what he could do there just with that much time to continue to develop as a receiver. And also, so the other question is why Arkansas? Why not Missouri? Because he's from Missouri. Apparently, he's good friends with Arkansas's running backs coach, and that's what started it. Also, one of the current football coaches where his hometown is Limbo Parks, who's a former Razorback, and he's out. Otis says he's there working out at that school right now with Limbo, and Limbo Parks has been quoted. Limbo Parks has said this guy's going to be a starter for the first game. He's making bold predictions. Otis said, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if he'd come around that quickly.
Okay, well.
He'd have to go through 2 days and just suddenly rise to the top of the depth chart at wide receiver. But he apparently, Limbo's pushing Arkansas. So there's 2 things right there. And then Otis said he's also really familiar with Petrino and how he works receivers and gets them open. So all of those things sort of combine to get him to commit to Arkansas. Now, what other people are worried about is he's not enrolled yet.
Yeah.
So until he's here, they're still thinking, oh, that smart aleck at Missouri that pops off all the time, he'll just steal him, because he's always bragging about how he steals guys from Arkansas, out-recruits Arkansas, and out-recruits Pittman in his own home state. That's what Missouri fans are always saying on the internet. So I asked Otis, when's he going to be here? And he said, probably next week.
Okay.
So maybe next week we can talk about the fact that he's actually here, and no, he's not going to Missouri.
Yeah, once he enrolls, I think everyone will feel a little bit better about that situation. But I also think it's just funny that people are so quick to say, oh, these guys are old. And we've seen other examples of that happening before, where guys have gone back and done that and be a leader in the locker room, like you said, had that maturity. And it ended up actually helping. I think it's actually a really good thing for Arkansas. And you know what's even better? That they don't have to use a scholarship on him. I think that's even better. What if he turns out to be a really great athlete? He's a walk-on. You're not spending any money on him. You're not spending a scholarship spot on him. You're keeping another scholarship open, and he's just a walk-on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, because I think it'd be a really cool story if he comes out and he actually is, like Limbo says, and does a really good job next season. I don't know about starting the first game.
That's what Limbo says.
Okay, we'll see about that. We'll have to keep an eye on Monte Harrison, but it'll be cool when he gets here. I want to ask him especially why he wanted to pick Arkansas and some of those things.
That will be interesting too, but that's what Otis says. He's got connections here. And
hey, I mean, he played football 10 years ago, but he was the
I'm
number.
telling you, people
He was the
keep
number.
selling Sam Pittman short. He's done a great job with the portal.
Yeah.
They've addressed a lot of their needs. And I've got a story I'm going to tell next week when I talk about the trip I went on, because
Yeah.
I went back to speak at a memorial service for one of my high school buddies, and his grandson plays for Nevada. And I was able to talk to him about a lot of things and he knows about Talon Green. And so we talked to him about them because they're in the same conference with Boise. So we'll talk a little bit more about all that next week.
I'm excited. I saw your tweet. So I also saw they said that Musselman Nevada fans were still angry at Musselman.
Well, he wasn't there when Musselman was there, but he said when he got there, he became aware they're always mad at Musselman, because he said Musselman told the fans, hey, I'm going to stay here and make the Wolfpack a national power. And then they had a great season, and he went to Arkansas. So he wanted to know if Razorback fans were mad at Musselman. And I said, they're not mad, probably because he had a bad season. Now, if he'd have gone to the Final Four and used that to get the USC job, then they'd probably be mad like the Nevada fans were. But he said they're still mad at him.
Yeah, I saw your tweet and I was like, oh, I'm excited to hear your story on that. I thought you were going to tell it this week, but there you go. It's a teaser to watch Ask Mike next week, like I know you guys will. But that's going to do it for this week from us. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.